Okay, and welcome back to Murder Valley YouTube channel. This is the Mega G Plus 1.7 build part 2. This time we're going to look at the motor, and you may notice I've switched to a point. So one of the things that I do, because I use com drops in the motors, and these are a sealed unit. So one of the things I do is I put a small hole, but I'm gonna do it this way. So I'm just gonna do that now. If you go too far, you damage the motor brushes, which is why I prefer these diamond cone tips. So what I'm doing is I'm halving that up and going right at the end of that tab there. And that is about perfect. And you can see there's a small hole there. You can see the small hole there. That's all you need to do. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to pull the motor apart. Some of you may or may not have seen this happen. I'm just grabbing the pinion replacement tool out of my toolbox. Oh, sorry, removal tool. So we'll just put that in there with the other small pieces. So the tip to pulling one of these motors apart and not ripping the motor brushes off is to find a little flat blade screwdriver, which that one's too big. This one's probably too small. Right, so to pull these motors apart, these little metal tabs here, if you can do it without stabbing yourself. It'd be nice if I just had one a little bit bigger. Alright, so there's one side. And obviously there's a tab here under the wire. Okay, so here's the tip. To keep the armature in the end bell so that we don't rip the motor brushes off, with the pinion off and supporting it like this, you can lower the outer of the motor off, and that keeps the armature in the hull. So I'm just gonna use a little, oh, it's come out anyway, but oh no, it hasn't. You can see the little plastic insulator wants to get caught on the other side of the brush. This one does not want to come. I just want to be able to get it free of the magnets. Oh well, that worked, and I still have both the motor brushes there. If you pull those little motor brushes off, there is no way you're ever getting them back on there again. There must be something on this armature to stop that from wanting to come out of the... Oh, why doesn't it want to come out? I've never had one do this before. Ah, it's caught on that tab in the top of the... I need to do a better job of moving that tab up. The solder's in the way on this one. There you go, that's what it was. So, things we're looking at with these motors inside is how much motor brush is left, how the position of the motor brush arms, if you want them both to be lined up approximately the same distance from the center hole. It's actually quite difficult for me to show you that with the lighting I have here, but that one looks okay, and there's still plenty of motor brush left. Now I've got the insulator that I've taken off there, but we'll get a bit of focus here. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the com, and then I'm going to rake out the segments, because that's what makes them warm. I'm just going to take this to my lathe and just very, very lightly run over the com with a bit of fine wet and dry. This bit here, it's about a bit of 600. Well, I might even try it here. Yeah, no, I'm going to go to the lathe. I'll be back. Okay, so that took about 30 seconds, but I've just stuck the actual winding and clamped it in my miniature lathe vise, chuck like that, and just spun it up and given it a very light sand. So now what I want to do, or what I need to do, is just make sure that these little com segments have nothing in them, because it's a surefire way to burn an armature out if you I think I need a magnifying glass. These things are tiny. Okay, I'm happy with that. So put the little insulator back on, because if you don't, there's a metal bushing there in the end of the motor, and if that touches, it's going to arc your motor out and blow it up for sure. Okay, so putting it back together is a reverse of how you pulled it apart. So I just want to gently spread the motor brushes, not push through. So I've sort of gone through from the side. That's now in. Now, you want the top side of your circuit board to match up with the top side of the can. Otherwise your motor will spin the opposite way, because if you reverse the magnets, they spin the opposite direction. Okay, so now I've just got to bend these tabs back to retain it in its original position, so it doesn't come apart when you don't want it to. And then just check that, and make sure it spins freely, which is very difficult without a pinion on, because the shaft's so small. Okay, little bit of lubrication on the bushes at either end, and that's what's that catching on? Feels like it's catching on something. Why? Let's just test that. I don't know what that was. Let me get some voodoo drops and I'll show you the difference. Okay, so here's some, I use voodoo drops, but any kind of com drops will do the same sort of thing. So in this newly made hole, you can put a little bit in while the motor's in situ. Happy days. Alright, so now when reinstalling one of these motors and circuit boards back in here, you've got to make sure you get the circuit board in at the same time, and so that it sits in nice and flush. Then you want to see these motor brush hangers sticking down the same, so you want to see them flush there at the bottom of the chassis. Sorry, I'm holding that on the wrong angle for you. Yeah, you just want to see those on the nice and flush. So I've got to move this pinion, obviously. Alright, so that all spins nice and free. And now we get to reassemble with a little piece of plastic. So one of the things that I do, little drop of super glue, because I hate the springs in these things. I'm sick of getting down on my hands and knees looking for them. So I've got a little dab of super glue there. So I just wet the very end of it and then spread it out, and then I put that in the hole, and that will now stay there. It's not so much. You can use what do they call it? Like a thread locker, and that will do the same thing. But now, when you take your pickup shoes off next time, they won't fly off, and you won't be having to go searching for them because they're still there. Now this will need new pickup shoes, but this will do for showing you how it goes for after the rebuild. Look at that, I just flicked that spring and it stayed there. How good's that? Don't even have to think about. Alright, so checking the voltage on the dyno, it's still around 19. So it's going to be a little bit tight because we first put it together. But I am going to let this thing run on here for a little bit. I'm going to pause this video. And just like before, it'll pick up and it'll get faster, and it'll free that back axle up in those holes, and it'll start spinning fast again. But I'm going to pause for now, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm back. I've got connectivity issues. So when I put it on, it's not running real flash, but if I hold the front down, it's running pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part of the video, and I'm going to put some jumpers in between the motor attachment points right here and the motor brush pickup hangers here. So we're going to bypass the circuit board, and then we're going to see if that fixes part of the problem that I have here. Okay, I've got my soldering on. I've got some Cat 5 cable, single strand. Just getting the excess solder off now so I don't melt this. That's funny. It's not that easy doing this over the top of a camera. There we go. Need to put some more solder on it. Actually, I might put a little bit more on this. Oh. I soldered the chip. I've soldered the chip as well, but it's done the job there. Hang on. Okay, found my snips. So now trim the excess off and just push that down so it's close to the attachment point for the pickup shoe, and then solder that in as well. And I might, now that that's attached on the other end, I might try and have a go. There we go, that's better. Didn't really want to get that. I've just blown all the solder out of the hole for the motor. Well done. Gonna melt that. Things only ever go wrong when you video yourself. And my solder's a bit big, so I'm going to try and... Mine's probably a bit too hot now. Let's just check that still runs. Straight away, I think I might have found my inconsistency problem. Straight away that ran better. Again, cut the excess off. You can see how that's sitting up on an angle. So I'm just pushing that down so it's in the vicinity of where I want to solder it. Just going to move it out a little bit too. There we go. So that's probably the best. That's probably the best solder I've done out of the four of them. But anyway, let's pop that back on now and see what that does. Yeah. No, still got issues. You can hear it. It's definitely a problem between the pickup shoe and the dyno. So I'll keep on running this in as I go. So the axle hole's still loosening up. I think putting some new pickup shoes on this wouldn't help, but that, oh, sorry, wouldn't hurt, but it still shouldn't make that much difference just sitting on the dyno. But this back axle will get, you know, it's still probably a little bit tight compared to what it was, but it's still not, it's not tight, but that'll free up with a bit more use, even more than what it is now. And by tonight's race, mate, this should actually run pretty well after a couple of laps running it in. By my experience of doing them before, but so there you go. This is how I build a chassis. That's what I do with all my own race cars. This is what I do for other people. And I end up with pretty consistent and fast cars. Anyway, thank you for watching. With a bit more run-in time, that'll come great. Thank you.